Acme School. Yeah, it's Pete Burden here from TVNZ. Look, we've just heard about this bus crash, and I just want to let you know we've got a crew coming around to the school to talk to the principal. We'll see you in about 5 minutes. That's what happens these days. It could be an emergency where you've got kids injured or worse in a bus crash, or it could even be some reputational issue like major complaints about your, bullying policies or something along those lines. The thing is, that's what happens. You'll get a quick call from the media before they come round, or you might not even get a call. So they might turn up in reception, and then of course you don't know what to do with them, and the receptionist probably doesn't know what to do with them. So that's one thing you have to be aware of, and you need to have something organised to deal with that. The last thing you want also is parents turning up at school in an emotional state and then reporters turning up at the same time, because obviously that's going to give very emotional type stories that may not make you look that good. And then you've got the issue with parents talking on social media, because what happens in these situations is there'll be a media story up on the media website within minutes, and then within about 15 minutes or half an hour it'll be through social media. And if you haven't got back to the media with just a statement, something along the lines of we're aware of the situation, we're doing all we can to help, or something along those lines, it will just say you refuse to comment. And of course there's no time at this point to start writing statements and getting them cleared by lawyers and this sort of thing. So you have to have all this ready to go. It's different because in the old days you just had to worry about tonight's TV news or tomorrow's newspaper. Now things happen immediately, like I've just said, so you have to be ready for that. And that includes having things like pre-prepared media statements for issues that may happen. You need to have a list of media to contact. You need to have what I call an on-day game plan where you know what to do in specific situations. There are particular roles that need to be filled by staff at the school. Sometimes, depending on the size of your school, that might be one person. For a larger school, it might be 5 or 6 people. All this has to be in a crisis communication plan. Often people have an emergency management plan, but they don't have a crisis communication plan. And if you don't, and it takes you a long time to respond, it can really dent your reputation. I'm Pete Burden from Media Training NZ, and I do a lot of work with schools across New Zealand and latterly Australia. Now, I've got a crisis communication plan template specifically for schools that basically covers all these things I've been talking about. So I'm about to show you through that, and then at the end of it I'm going to show you some packages we've got to get this moving in your school. Just before I show you through the plan, I just want to answer a question I had from a principal very recently, and that was that if a crisis or something bad happened, he would ring a PR company and get them to come and help. Well, that's definitely what you need to do. The thing is with this plan is that this plan is for what you need to do before that happens, because it will take a PR company 2 or 3 hours to get to you and get statements written and sent out, and that's too long. These days it's all about speed. So while you definitely need to have a PR person or company on board and have them in the critical information list here, you need to have this ready as well. Okay, so you can see here this is in Google Drive, and that's how I share the plan with you, and then you take ownership of it from there. Now the plan is in 2 parts. There's plan preparation here, and all these other documents are for things to help you on crisis day. Okay, it's a little bit like anything, like even a game of rugby or something, where you practice during the week and you get your game plan all set, and then on game day you just put everything into practice. Well, that's the plan preparation is your practice, and then all these other documents here are what you put into practice on the day. Okay, so the plan preparation comes basically into 5 parts. The first part is creating your team. Now there are lots of things that would need to be done in the communication response to an issue like this, and we just need to cover off what they are and who will do those. And that ranges from the social media monitor person to the spokespeople to someone who's actually going to oversee this whole crisis communication effort. And that's probably not going to be the principal, because the principal's probably going to be busy doing all sorts of other things. Now the second thing is organising what could go wrong, and obviously there are a number of things that could go wrong. I've identified 5, and I've got over here, I've got holding statements ready to go for those. Now, a holding statement is a brief media release that just basically says you're aware that whatever's happened, you're doing all you can to help, and it might be your hearts go out to the victims if there are victims at that point. Okay, so the idea of this is you basically fill in the gaps to these holding statements, you send them out to media, and usually to parents as well. And then what that means is when stories are written about this in the early phases, you're actually in those stories just showing you know what's going on and you care. That's really important. And if you don't have these, obviously you're not going to be in those stories. It'll just be a refuse to comment type comment. Okay, so that's the second thing. Obviously you can add the scenarios there yourself as well. The ones I've got there range from death of a student to bullying accusations, that sort of thing. Now the third and fourth things you need to do are basically working out exactly what stakeholders you need to contact and how you're going to contact them. Now there'll be a lot of stakeholders here that you may not be able to contact, you may not have even thought you need to contact them. We go through all those here and we work out how we're going to get in touch with them if we need to. For example, a lawyer, an insurer sometimes. Okay, so there's those sorts of things. With the channels you need to set up, I mean, we do cover social media and these sorts of things too. I'm sure a lot of you have social media because that's really important, and you need to be updating your page all the time because that's really the only way you can avoid parents complaining, and and again, media can take those quotes for these stories as well. All right, so and then the last thing you need to have ready is a lot of rooms and places in the school for varying situations. For example, we already talked about earlier, if the media start rushing into school, well, you need to have someone ready to greet those people, and that will be someone in your crisis communication team, and then you need to have somewhere where they will take them. Okay, these are things you don't want to be thinking of on the day. What if parents turn up too? You don't want them to be taken somewhere where there are media. So we go through those. And in this critical information lists here, there's all that you put a lot of these things in there, like these rooms, who's going to take them to them. You have, I actually even have a media list in there because there will be occasions where you need to contact media. Well, I've got all the major media in here. You just have to add your local media to that. So most things are taken care of here. Even here, there's a letter to send parents of victims. Now, if there is an unfortunate death, often the media want to talk to the parents of the victim. This tells the parents how that will work and what their rights are. Okay, I've got an on-day game plan. This isn't science, but it does tell you roughly what to do when something happens. For example, if there's a lot of parent interest, but a little bit of media interest, then you might get your holding statement ready, but not necessarily send it. In a lot of situations, it will be obvious it's a major crisis, so you've got to do all the things I have there. Okay, so it just gives you a bit of an idea, because obviously also you don't want to create a crisis if there isn't one. So you don't want to start contacting media and all this sort of stuff if you don't need to. Okay, plan objectives. Now, you need to have objectives for this plan, and I've got some written out here, and I've also got an area where the board chair and the principal can sign. Now, it's really important that that does happen, because this does have to be an official document. If it's not, it probably won't get looked at, and then something will go wrong and you won't be ready. And you also realistically should have annual like drills, which just means getting the team around the table and coming up with a scenario and just working out what people would do in that situation. I can come and help facilitate those, or you can do them yourself. Okay, there's a little bit here about press conferences. You might need to organise one of those. I mean, your PR people by that point might be able to help as well. And then staff guidelines, because the media won't just be wanting to talk to the spokesperson, they'll be wanting to talk to anyone they can find. So staff need to know how to deal with that, and that's covered off there. The other thing you get here too is a video like the one we're doing now, but it's a bit more detail, and it goes through all these areas here to show you how this plan comes together. The last thing I'll say before I show you what options you've got to get this plan going in your school is that everything here is totally tailorable. While I've put in there what I think, you will have differences in some of these areas, so you can tailor them to meet your school needs. For example, planned objectives you may change a little bit. You might even want to change some of these letters or the holding statements even. So that's totally up to you. The best way to get this working in your school is for me to come in and do a 3-hour session with you, where we go through the plan and we actually put it into practice around the table with some of your senior management team. The other option is that you get a group together, whether that be in a cluster or a community of learning or an association even, and get a group together, and then I come in and do the same thing with you there. The other thing I do occasionally in Auckland, 2-hour public workshops for school principals where we go through the crisis communication planning process, and then you get the option of buying a plan after that if you wish. Now, the other thing is, which is quite popular too, is doing a crisis communication planning session along with a media interview training session, because they go hand in hand and one normally needs the other as well. So that's something to think about. So look, I'm about to put my email address up. So the best thing you can do is email me or phone me to find out more information, and then we can go from there.